what's your name and how are you feeling?
Yeah, Brett Peterson. It's the end of the first week, I guess, at network school.
Yeah.
Feeling good. I have some questions, of course, and like I think intellectually honest people should be probing and questioning.
Yep.
So at least I tell myself that. But generally speaking, I'm really liking it here.
It's been actually a really good start. I feel
Yeah.
like people are enthusiastic and it's not overly over the top. It feels good.
Yeah, agreed.
What are some questions you have? Is it something you can have on top of mind or?
Yeah, I'm going to write a post about it, but it's economic viability. So thus far, the network school has been primarily consumptive. We've done a little bit of work together making open source software, which is great, and that's very productive. But economic viability for a state of any kind, network or sovereign, right? Network or geographic, you have to be able to, you have to have enough economic productivity that people are willing to pay you for to support yourself. And I haven't seen us optimize for that at all, or even talk about that at all. And so that's one question I have is for network states, like, I'm working remotely, right? Which is great, and that's my version of economic viability. But that also means I'm spending 8 hours at night not participating in the network state, right? So I think there's a little bit of tension that we haven't resolved yet, or at least maybe I'm just feeling it personally. But
when you talk like economically, that how does the network state get money flowing in?
Precisely.
And energy and work.
Exactly. Right now we're relying on other structures, our remote
team,
jobs.
basically.
Yeah, the largest team or other structures, or just people being independently wealthy, like past structures, right?
True.
That's fine for 3 months. That is not okay for a year. That is not okay for 10 years, right? So I think there's a question of economic viability that we have to answer. How do we make it so people are starting and running successful businesses here that then are pumping resources into the economy of this network state?
Right. Could it not be like the fee of attending would pay kind of the costs?
That's essentially taxes, right? The fee of attending is essentially the taxes. So it supports the structure of the school itself, but it doesn't make it so anybody in here can be here forever, right? Like there's no long-term viability. Like eventually I'll run out of money.
Paying the taxes infinitely.
Right. I have to have some other income coming in to afford to pay the taxes, right?
But that's a good thing that you're asking question and not being taking it all at face value.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's good.
I think it is a solvable problem. I don't think it's like theoretically destructive to this idea of network state.
You need this questioning to get there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Something we need to work out.
So what do you do at nights, 8 hours when you're not participating?
Sure. So I'm director of product for a VC fund called Manifold Group out of Chicago. And so I work with their advisory arm and help their clients with product issues, product problems, and lead a team of product owners and product managers. And then I also work directly with some of their portfolio companies, including one in particular called PowerNotes, an EdTech startup that's doing some really interesting things in transparency and AI blended together. So AI in education is kind of a controversial subject sometimes, or polarizing subject. PowerNotes is taking the approach that it's much less polarizing and much more socially beneficial and individually beneficial when we add the transparency to it. So
That sounds like a really fun job, that you are the product person at many startups, kind of. You get to help the product people at many.
Yes.
Wow.
It is very satisfying. I really enjoy it.
That sounds fun.
Thanks.
Honestly.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. And my people at Manifold are wonderful. All of my bosses are great. So I have the boss who I report to that's the CEO of the startup, Wilson Su, who is phenomenal. I report up to Darren Marshall, who actually just joined me as an advisor for my side hustle, which is kind of cool. And then also to Matt Nardi, who is one of the founders of the fund, they're all great people I respect a lot. And so, great job.
But tell me more about this EdTech thing.
Yeah.
What is it? What does it do?
So the core product is like a browser extension where you can highlight text on any digital document. And then you can save that text to an outline, and we generate a citation for you automatically and record kind of when and where and what happened when you got that information.
Like what website you got it from.
Yeah, all of that kind of stuff. It makes, which with the result that when you're doing research for a paper or something, you only have to pass through the information once. So remember being a student and going through, I used to be a student and I would download all my quotes and citations and information into a Word document and write my paper and then
it was such a mess.
It was such a mess, such a pain in the neck. So all of that goes away. And because I'm saving it to my outline at the beginning, I also don't waste time on extraneous stuff because all the stuff I'm doing is tied to a structure, right? And so there's actually some educational psychology we've baked into that. So when you're specifically writing a paper or doing targeted research, it is really, really effective and We've done some studies that show it speeds up research by quite a lot, makes students who feel like they're bad at research find it more enjoyable.
So it's specifically for students and academics.
As yet, yes.
Right.
We're moving into a greater space. We've been actually specifically higher ed students is what we focused on previously. We've added an AI layer, so you can have AI summarize the document you're looking at. You can use AI to query the document you're looking at and answer specific questions. You can use it as an open prompt. But we make the prompts and responses visible to the teacher. And we allow the teacher to have some level of control over what those prompts and responses can be. So the prompts, for example, the teacher might say, hey, I want you to do first order critical thinking. Don't have the AI summarize stuff for you. But you can use the AI to help reword your own writing, right? Use it like super Grammarly, right?
Yeah.
And so we allow that level of control and transparency. And so it becomes like AI is a tool that's here and probably here to stay, right?
Yes,
like
yes.
And so rejecting that wholesale, I mean, educators know we're living in a world where AI is happening, right? So they can't just get rid of it altogether. But so we're trying to make it so educators can have the conversation with students, like what is an appropriate use of AI? What is an AI that extends your capabilities and enhances your learning rather than replaces it?
How do you think about that? Because you, if I understand, you have 6 kids.
Yes.
How do they use LLMs at all? How do you think about this? What's
Yeah.
the optimal way to learn with in this new day and age?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I find that I think it's really beneficial. Let's look at education briefly, right? When we're learning, how much of what we're learning is fluff and not actually like knowledge or wisdom generation or even skill generation, and how much is actually useful? Like take a random nonfiction book off the shelf, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's a very dry text, it's 40% facts, 30% facts. There might be one major theory. Like think about Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond.
True that.
I love Guns, Germs, and Steel, by the way. I think it's a fantastic attempt at talking
it's
about.
It's a long book.
It's a long book, but the core idea is simply that there are geographic advantages to being in Eurasia that North America, South America, Australia, and Africa did not have. That's the core principle in one sentence. All the rest is supporting information.
And that's why the Industrial Revolution happened there.
And that's why the Industrial Revolution happened there. That's why Eurasia conquered the rest of the world instead of vice versa, right?
Okay, yeah.
Now there are valid critiques of Jared Diamond's work. I'm not wholeheartedly endorsing it. I enjoy his work, right?
Yeah.
I think there's things you can respond to
yeah.
it, right? But the point is, all the rest of that are supporting evidence, which is important to know. That's fine. But there are many other works that are a lot less rigorous than Jared Diamond's, right? Where it's 40,000 words, 60,000 words, 80,000 words for one idea that can be contained.
Academia loves this.
Exactly.
Papers after papers, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. Fluffed out because it's prestigious, or you can charge a higher premium or whatever. And so I think where AI, so boiling stuff down into manageable bites and then going through it actually primes your brain so you can say, okay, what am I holding on to and what is fluff? So I think using the AI as a primer is excellent for education.
So using AI to find the good parts.
Even even not necessarily as a replacement for reading it yourself, but as an advance of reading it yourself. So I'm saying, here's this whole text. What things should I look out for? Oh, the primary key points seem to be X, Y, Z. Then when I read it, I can say, I'm hearing for X, Y, and Z. Oh, wait, I disagree. Z is not a primary point. A is a primary point, right? But I'm already engaging with material more than if I just passively kind of go through it, right?
Yes.
So I think using the AI to prime your brain is very effective. Okay. The second is you can use AI to parse a dramatically larger volume of material. So one of the tools we're working on with PowerNotes is still in beta, it hasn't been rolled out to users yet, is a system that will let you, it's a search tool, essentially, where you say, hey, I have this academic question. And the AI, the other place that LLMs are really useful is as a human-to-computer interface. It does a really good job interpolating human text, human voice, or human text into something the machine can understand. And so leveraging that, I think, is phenomenal, right? Like just that, moving that human-machine computer interface, LLMs, I think, have a huge role that's not necessarily education-based, but just in general. I think that's a huge value add to have. But for education, we have a tool that will let you say, okay, here's my research question. The machine spits back, okay, here's 3 search terms or 3 search queries we might use around that the machines will like better. You can edit those as you like. We say, okay, great, I like those search terms. Here's the sources I want you to interrogate, the types of sources I want you to find. And then it pulls and goes and grabs, you can set the number, but 5, 10, 15, 25, 100 of sources for each of those search terms. Now I've got 50, 150, 300 sources I'm going through. And the AI can provide me a brief summary and bullet points for each of those. I scroll through and say, I don't want these, et cetera, right? And now I've got a very curated list of sources to go through in detail, right? So I've just parsed 300 documents that would have taken me hours as a human. Yes. And now I've got that down to 5 minutes, maybe.
So for research, it can really help a lot.
It does, but I think that same, and again, I'm in EdTech, so that was where we were focusing it. But it doesn't have to be just for research. On my way over here, I stopped in Japan, for example, right? And if you think about itinerary planning, it's the same problem. There's thousands of sources in the web that say, here's the things you should do in Japan. I've never been to Japan. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Right? And so I'm trying to parse all these different sources. And I could spend hours and hours and hours on research, or I can have the LLM say, give me your top 50 suggestions. I narrow it down to say, okay, tell me more about these 30. I narrow it down and say, tell me more about these 10. Let's play these out across 3 days.
Yep.
Build in the timelines.
For sure, it's really good at that.
It's really, really good at that. And I think that's a good emblematic example, stereotypic example of how LLMs can be useful to the process rather than...
I hear that you have used them a lot in these cases. It comes naturally. What about the kids? How are they using it? Using them? Are they finding them useful at all?
Yeah, so our children actually aren't on the LLMs yet. They're not using those per se, but I think what we're going to have them do, the other thing that LLMs
are they using Khan Academy though?
They're using Khan Academy.
The Khan Amigo thing?
We haven't played with Khan Amigo yet, so at least to my knowledge. Maybe my kids are doing it and I don't know.
Maybe they have found it.
Maybe they have. So we haven't played with that yet, but where I would say, okay,
is it there like there's the risk also, because when you unleash an LLM on a kid, you unleash the whole, of the internet. The
whole of the internet, yeah, exactly. Now, what I'm seeing actually is more of a risk is that the LLMs are already ideologically captured, right? The silly example is, Black George Washington. Give me a picture of the U.S. president, and it comes out with a black person.
Yeah,
right?
it was like that. Actually.
Yeah, and so so finding you have this balance between super censored AI that is ideologically captured by the nature of what you choose to censor, right?
Yep.
One way or the other, if you agree with the ideology, it's ideologically captured. Or you have completely unfettered AI, which can go really wild, really fast, right?
Yeah.
So
what do you think about this Elon's Grok and X that he at least says, I don't know if it actually is, but he tries to aim for some sort of truth?
Yeah. I use Grok occasionally. I haven't found it to be powerful enough to do what I want it to do yet. So it's been one of the lighter weight LLMs I've played with, but I haven't touched it in 2 or 3 months. So it may have gotten dramatically better since then. But what I do see LLMs being really useful at, when at the very first opening days of OpenAI, somebody pointed out that they used the whole internet as a training set and it cost them $10 million or $90 million or whatever it was, right? And somebody pointed out, so you're telling me I can replace Google? Yeah. Google just caches the internet, right? Same thing. And so anybody want to pitch in? I think it was $9 million they said, whatever number I saw. Anybody want to pitch in $10 million and replace Google? And frankly, Google search has gone down the toilet.
It's really bad nowadays.
It's really bad nowadays.
Especially on some political topics. It seems like very biased.
Yeah, forget about it. Yeah, exactly. And so using the LLM as a replacement search tool, to me, makes a lot of sense. Perplexity AI is a great example of that, right? Yeah, they're doing that and doing a phenomenal job with it. And so I think that's where I would have my kids use the AI.
Yes.
Personally,
I don't search Google much. If I want info or learn something, I just ask an LLM.
Yeah, exactly. And for general information, it's perfect for that, right?
Yep.
The other thing I think it's really good for an AI is that, for example, the 2 days ago when we had the first bounty posted here.
Yeah.
It was a coding bounty, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how to code. I'm working on my 100 days of code in Python. I'm on day 10, right?
Yep.
So I'm not a developer by any stretch. But I use ChatGPT to say, okay, here's the problem. How do I tackle it? Here's some suggestions. Okay, that makes general sense. Let's start working through this. And it took me probably 200 or 300 prompts. I use up my daily quota once or twice for those two things. Yeah. But I got something working that would actually pull Farcaster ideas. It works, it interacts with the API. And I had to do some stuff with that. I had to go say, okay, the AI would get stuck and say, I don't know how to get to this information. The APIs aren't responding like expected. So I had to go search in YouTube and Google and find out, okay, I can use Pinata Hub to get access to this. And then here's the documentation. And often I would just dump documentation into ChatGPT and say, I don't understand this documentation, walk me through it.
But you could build something and deploy it online.
And I did, yeah.
In a day.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing how it has changed in 1 year or 2.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and part of me wants to say, I'm here at a cryptocurrency conference, right? This is kind of a cryptocurrency
a lot
heavy
of
school.
Enthusiasts
here. right? Oh,
We can
blocking
go.
traffic here.
Yep.
And so part of me wants to say, okay, what's the simplest coin to deploy? What's the simplest way to make something on the blockchain?
Yeah.
And have AI help me walk me through it,
Yes.
right? Because I will understand it, even if it's garbage at the end. Like my deployment for the bounty probably won't get picked because it's very slow. It's not optimized.
But you learned.
But I learned a ton about, okay, here's how we're connecting to the things, here's how we're pulling the information, here's where the timestamps live, here's how the table structure works on the optimized network, right? All that kind of stuff.
What do you have something on top of mind right now that you would like to see built in the world, or that you are thinking about?
Yeah.
It could be crypto, could be anything.
Yeah. Well, I think I told you about the gold app I'm working on, right?
I only heard about it briefly.
Yeah,
Say more.
So I'm working on an app. So if I'm really honest, like keep this between you and me and the internet, but in my heart of hearts, I think that there's a whole swath of the population that just gets cut out from all the benefits of the financial system.
100%.
Yeah.
Third world, you mean?
Third world, poor people,
anywhere
in the world, middle class people anywhere in the world.
True. It's all everywhere.
Yeah. So that's what leads to this like K-shaped recovery we heard about with COVID, right? Some people get super wealthy and the rest of us don't.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, I agree.
So my thoughts were, okay, how can I help people on the bottom end gain the benefits of something like cryptocurrency or something like the financial instruments, right?
Yes.
So I'm working on an app called Midas. It's a Midas app. If you want to see the terrible landing page right now, Midas app, midasgold.app. We have the midasapp.gold as well. They should both go to the same place. But don't go yet because we're fixing the landing page.
This will take 3 days to come out. Maybe you will have time.
I hope so. My new advisor is helping me with it. That's one of the
Very
things
well.
I'm excited about. But anyway, the purpose of the app is to allow fractional purchase of gold. So if you have $1 to spend and put in savings, you can spend $1 on gold and it goes into your savings account denominated in ounces.
Nice.
Right? And that's important because gold, some people love gold as an investment. I think it's not the most high yield investment, but it is a well understood hedge against inflation.
Yes.
I don't see how the United States is not going to experience even more hyperinflation in the coming years. You can't triple the monetary supply in 10 years and expect not to have...
And they just now announced the low rates again.
Yes, exactly, which is going to drive the problem harder and faster.
Okay.
I will benefit as a medium class, high class, wealthy person. I will benefit from that because I will...
Yeah, you have assets and all that.
Yeah, exactly. But somebody who's working at a gas station cannot.
That's true.
Right? And they're the ones who's going to take it on the chin. Their $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 savings account is going to go to worthless real fast, right?
But something like Robinhood is doing this for, making it easy to invest. But this is even smaller, even easier.
Even smaller, even easier, even less. It's just a single purchase. Do I have gold or not, right? Do I want to buy gold or not? And then with that, making it fungible so we can turn it back into dollars. Like, hey, I need to feed my family. So my money's not locked into gold. One of the problems with holding physical gold is you got to sell it at a pawn shop. I mean, where you sell it,
This is easy to go back and forth.
Easy to go back and forth. And then third, third has two halves. One is a lot of people don't feel like they're secure enough to hold gold. If I have a crappy apartment, I'm worried about somebody breaking in and stealing my gold bars, right? I don't want to hold gold physically, right?
Of course.
So we offer secure storage in a repository, a big vault.
You're actually going to have the physical.
I already have a relationship with a repository, yeah.
Right.
So there's a physical holding location that would take a small army to break into and rob, right?
So this is like you get your salary, and then instead of having it in dollars, you just have it in gold. And as soon as you need to buy something, you kind of insta-convert.
Yes, exactly. Convert it back to dollars and goes into your account at that day. So if we're hitting, Weimar Republic style inflation, then you can avoid some of that, right? It protects poor people against inflation is my hope. That's my big dream of this, right?
What do you think about Bitcoin versus gold?
So I think Bitcoin's fine, but there's a technical hurdle to getting into Bitcoin. Like cryptocurrency, people feel like it's easy to get in crypto. I will tell you, as somebody on the outside of cryptocurrency, I'm relatively technical. Like I've made 3D scanning programs. I've built my own rigs and done relatively technical stuff, right?
Yep.
I am terrified by crypto. It is so opaque to me. Even I'm learning now, right? But
ChatGPT is good at helping you, but I understand it's very difficult.
It's very difficult.
I agree.
And so this is to simplify. But the other half of that coin, so some people want their gold held securely for them. The other half is a lot of people want to hold their gold themselves. They want to own it in their own vaults next to their shotguns and canned food, right?
Yep.
And so the other service we provide that differentiates us from Bitcoin and even like Tether is we'll ship coins to you in 1 ounce increments. So once you save up an ounce, you do your $5 purchase every week or something, right? You save up your $2,500 or how much gold is running at that time. I think it's 27 now or something. Then we'll ship you that coin, and you want to hold it in your own safe. totally fine.
You get the physical gold
You
coin.
get the physical gold coin.
Okay.
And so it kind of, that's kind of V1. V2 is then to connect with a stable coin that's gold backed and allow purchases in crypto.
Yep.
Which then lets you say, okay, dollars to gold, gold to crypto, crypto to gold, gold to dollars.
It's all fast.
It's all fast.
Clean.
And very fungible, right? And so it allows, again, it's an entry point for people who are terrified of crypto. If they want to go into crypto from their gold account, there's an option, right? So it's kind of a soft, almost an education option for people trying to get into crypto a little bit. It's an option for crypto people to get into gold, something kind of physical asset. And it's an option for people who can't afford to play in the financial system currently to be able to do so and hedge against inflation. Right?
I like that. It's a simple V1, and you can do more in the long term.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean,
how's it going? What's the where you at?
Yeah. So we've done some initial market research. The response has been very positive. The next bit, and the thing that frustrates me so much with the landing page, is we got to get the landing page to look really, really nice. Right? Because we're going to
modern day. It's gotta be.
It's got to be awesome, and it's not awesome yet, right? So if anybody goes to midasapp.gold, you'll see it's not awesome yet. Sorry.
But it doesn't have to be. It can also be minimalist. Awesome. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. So I've hired a couple of designers in several iterations to make it better. It has not gotten better. So why I brought on my new advisor is the head of design for the advisory group I work with, the VC Funds advisory group, and also a close personal friend. We've worked together for a couple of years now. Great guy, and he's a very successful former entrepreneur as well. So
nice.
Bringing him on as an advisor, he's helping us redo the landing page right now, which is awesome. As soon as that landing page is up to snuff, up to standard, right? I'm going to do a more thorough market test. We're going to put out advertising on. There's actually a couple of advertising networks that are specifically for gun owners.
For gun owners.
For gun owners, yeah. I think
they might be a good.
Yeah, a good initial market, right? Because they historically have been really interested in gold, and so seeing what the response is. What's our customer acquisition cost? How many? What does it take to bring in a customer? I'm going to test a viral loop where we offer people $10 of free gold.
Yeah.
I'm playing with this, so don't hold me this internet. Wait, see if this becomes real. The idea is give the people $10 of free gold and to spend $200 in the first 2 months or something, right?
It might actually work.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. And so playing around with a couple of ideas to see, okay, what's our virality? And then the V0 of this is I set up a very simple web page and a store, and people place their orders, and I call in when the markets close in America before the markets open in Shanghai, and I place an order every day, right? That's
right.
V1.
Of course.
Almost zero cost.
I love that.
Yeah, thank you. Do a little Stripe implementation and it's done, right?
For sure.
V2, if I can raise a little bit of funding, we build the app, so it's much more self-service, right?
Yes.
And there's an API I can connect to with my repository partners, so we automate a lot of that, right? And it makes so if I'm sick one day or something, people's purchases aren't in jeopardy. V3, we hire a whole big team and build out some of the V2 features, the connections to crypto, and also just run much more massive advertising. Like there are gold influencers on the internet, right? So the speed of acquisition goes up non-linearly with a linear increase in money. And so I'm here. One of the reasons I'm here I'm here for my job. They wanted me to come and network with people and learn about crypto and AI, which is awesome. So they're paying for me to be here, and Manifold Group is phenomenal for doing that.
For also this network school.
For network school, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, one reason I'm happy to work 9 to 5 in the evening to make that happen, right?
Yeah.
But as for my side hustle, I'm here to see, can I raise some funding, right? Is this idea have enough? I need to demonstrate the legs with that market test. So
it seems like this could be a Singapore, and the vicinity here is should be.
I think
possible.
So. Yeah, I hope so. I hope so that they'll draw enough attention to get investors interested.
Yeah. Do you think more long term on this network school, network state? What are your thoughts like?
Yeah.
Cautiously optimistic, or where are you at?
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think there is we've heard a lot about security, right? Vitalik just spoke about macro and micro defense, including biological defense, macro and micro security in terms of atoms, and we had heard from Oscar a little bit about the resurgent, revitalizing communities like resilience, economically viable communities. I think that's a question that has to be answered for long-term viability. If we make this more than a 3-month semester, it's got to be, you got to be able to earn a living doing it, right? Long-term, that's the gold standard, pardon the pun. You have to be able to earn a living while you're doing it.
Or you could earn your normal living just working as a digital nomad type.
You
be here.
you can, but then it's a
Resort.
It's a resort. Yeah, it's an educational resort. Yeah. Whereas if you have an actual economy where people are earning and spending together,
Yep.
then it's a whole different self-sustaining situation, right?
That's fair.
So that's my biggest question. I think I'm cautiously optimistic. I think the idea of having digitally or diplomatically recognized non-contiguous states makes sense. There are a lot of historical precedents for that. East India Company comes to mind, right? Is one I think of.
That was the biggest in history.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest, and I would call that a network state, right? I think they even had variations of their own currency at some point.
But did they also take over the land?
They did, and they had.
They control it.
Yeah, they did take care. They had ports that they owned, right? Like disparate geographic
army, everything.
Yeah, they had their whole thing.
True that.
So that's one example historically. So I think it's viable. I think it's workable.
You seem to know a lot of history. Every time I talk to you, there comes some history stuff.
Oh.
Where does that come from?
That's actually from my dad. My dad is a huge history buff. He really is interested in history, and so growing up, we'd talk about history on our walks and things. We used to watch PBS, World War II.
Fuck yeah.
Pistols and all that kind of stuff, right? There's a great one called Battlefield I loved that had great animations that would show the fronts and the movement of troops and stuff. And I remember, that's 30 years ago now, but I still remember it as interesting and kind of made history fun and exciting. So I'd credit my parents, but my dad especially on that.
What's something else you learned from your father?
Yeah, a couple of things. I mean, first, I hope to be as good a dad as he is. Right, so that's first, like my parenting skills and style. I certainly learned from him and from my mother. I don't mean to discount her at all. She's phenomenal as well.
Is there anything that comes to mind how would you describe this parenting style? It's usually like the whole life, how you are as a person, of course. But is there anything definable?
Dad prioritized us. He took several hits to his career to be more at home and engaged with his children. There were times he was a programmer and could have gone into international software sales, frankly, which would have probably tripled our household income, right? But he would have been gone. He'd been a weekend warrior, right? He'd been gone most of the time.
Weekend warrior, that's good.
Yeah. And so, I mean, my mom had 6 kids, right? I have 6 kids together. And he chose very consciously, like, this is a great economic opportunity, but my family is more important, therefore I will stay home with my family, right?
Nice.
And I'm not quite honoring that being here away from my 6 children for 3 months. But my wife and I talked about it and we agreed for a short time we can handle this, right?
Yes.
But that prioritization of family has certainly guided my own endeavors. There have been a couple of times where I've turned down investment or let projects die that probably could have taken off because I needed to be there for my wife and kids at that time in my life, right? I'm not going to come back up later, but
I get the feeling you're a good father.
I hope so.
What is something you are teaching your kids, like consciously or not consciously?
Yeah, so I'm consciously trying to inculcate entrepreneurial spirit in my children. So I've taken a stab at 7 different companies. I've stepped up and founded 7 companies, right? Ranging from publishing to 3D printing to metal industrial manufacturing to ag tech to new space to, I mean, you name it, right?
Yeah.
Now here in gold. And none of those have been particularly financially remunerative for me, but they have been jet fuel for my corporate career, right? Because not a lot of entrepreneurs cross back into the corporate space, right? So I bring that has really benefited me and my family in terms of just having a salary, right? And so
it has been valuable experience.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you've grown and learned.
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
And so I want my kids to have that. So I'm actually working with each of my children as they turn 8 or 10 to start their own businesses. Start like small side hustles. The goal is $1,000 of profit a month for each of them that I can put in a savings fund or some kind of account, right? Maybe gold. And then with the goal that by the time they leave my house, right, by the time they move out, they have a nest egg of, $120,000, right? Ideally.
Are you heading back to the?
I am.
We could walk there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, if they can imagine putting $1,000 a month away for 10 years, from the age of 8 to the age of 18,
and it's kind of with their own business.
With their own business.
$1,000 a year.
$1,000 a month.
Okay, yeah, that's wild.
The goal is $1,000 a month for each child. So my daughter's doing like a freeze-dried food business. My son's doing a printing business, wide format printer with like life-size coloring pages. My next son's doing 3D printing business, and then the other one's 4 and 2 and 1. So we'll give some time around.
You are kind of like the VC, and your kids are like the startups. But then it would make sense that only 1 or 2 will be successful.
It does, and we might have to pivot and might have to iterate. Just the act of them trying to start a business will teach them so much about life in the world, right?
True.
All the
even apart from the money.
Yeah, exactly. All the lies fall away when it's you on the line, right? Like, you can't really complain about your employer when you've been an employer and you know exactly how hard it is. It just changes your perspective entirely, right? So even if they don't stay entrepreneurs, that will be such a huge foundation for the rest of their lives, I think.
Yep.
And if they are successful, 120 grand to get started, I mean, that would be worth like 30 grand in a couple of years, but but even so, man, what a nest egg to start with as an 18-year-old, right?
And this is part of your homeschooling like curriculum.
Exactly.
Kind of.
Yes. Yeah. We
How
count
much?
that.
Yeah. Wow.
We count that as part of our explicit instructions. Is let's start businesses.
How much time do you spend with the older children? Obviously, how much time do they spend like learning school stuff and business
stuff? Yeah. So we're still getting into it. Honestly, it's still in the early stages. I have to we moved in last November, and so we've still been fixing our house and building things up. So I have to redo the power supplies in my garage for these businesses to happen.
Yeah.
So as that happens, I'm hoping by end of Q1 next year we'll spin it up. But my daughter is thinking about, I mean, she's already got plans to go buy food at a discount at the restaurant grocery market downtown, right in downtown St. Louis.
Yeah.
Her grandmother, my mother, lives still up closer to St. Louis. We live a little bit further south now. And so we've planned these trips where she can go with her grandmother to Grocery Row and buy cheap vegetables off the boat, right? And then bring those home, and our cheap fruits probably more than vegetables. And then freeze dry those, and we'll have to get the licenses and stuff so we can have a home freeze-drying business and the whole nine. But so we're planning it out still, but that's the goal.
I got a business idea for one of your kids.
Please.
I think elderly homes.
Yes.
You know, full of old people who are kind of bored and they have a lot of money.
Yes.
So there must be a good business there for children and old people.
Yes, to interact.
Like interact, selling whatever they're selling.
Yeah.
Or because that's just makes, and it's a good thing to interact with old people.
Absolutely.
And young, they have a nice, good dynamic of that.
Absolutely, and it's great, like learn life experiences from people who have lived. Right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Somehow, something there.
That's a great idea. I will take that, Millie, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. You are in St. Louis. I won't be competing.
Well,
and I don't have kids, so no worries.
Fair enough. Well,
Not
feel
yet.
free to steal wholesale any of the things I've talked about, except the gold app, please. But yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah. No, I really find you are admirable in the amount of kids and your this entrepreneurship and your energy in general is very, very good.
Well, thank you.
I hope it's true that you just you just need one hit home run. You just got to keep at it.
That's my hope. This is round 7, so if nothing else, I've demonstrated that I will keep stepping up to the bat. So if I can't be the big Russian super guy, I can be Rocky and just keep taking punches to the face until I win.
Yeah, it's not about how often you get hit, but how often you get up or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
What's some key lessons you could take from these past experiences, entrepreneurship-wise? What comes to mind, like stuff you did wrong, or what hurt, or what you learned, like lessons?
Yeah, a couple things. One, sometimes you make real mistakes, and it's important to just own up to those. The publishing house could have gone a lot bigger and a lot better. It was my first startup straight out of college. I had no idea what I was doing, right? And I screwed it up. That's full stop. We could have done much better. Now, the one victory I had with that was I got all my people stable jobs based on their resume and work with me, right? So that was cool.
That's impressive already.
Thank you. Yeah.
What did you do wrong? Like what specifically?
Yeah, so I just didn't run the numbers hard enough, right? Didn't measure enough, didn't run the numbers hard enough. So we were trying to make ebooks. Ebooks were just starting. Then this is 2012, right? 2011. Ebooks were just starting. And so we were trying to sell ebooks, and then as it turns out, here's one lesson from all of it: product is easy, distribution is hard.
Yep.
Yeah, and so
it's fun to make the product.
Exactly.
It's cool, and then who's gonna buy it?
And I'm a product guy, so I was even after you validate that there is market interest, even after you get product market fit, it's easy to screw up distribution. So we were trying to increase our marketing. We didn't have a lot of money to spend, or any money to spend. And so we did. Everybody was working on an equity and spec, right? And so we spun up a short story magazine to try that we could distribute as an advertisement for our books, right? Well, it turns out short stories magazines have even smaller readerships than books, which I should have known as the entrepreneur. Like that was a mistake on my part. That was just a straight up error.
Like market research type
Exactly,
thing.
exactly. I didn't know what I was doing. So that was you take your lumps, right? And then it was also very expensive. Each issue of the magazine was about the price of producing one book. So you have to pay the authors of the magazine a certain price per word, right? And I could have, so instead of publishing 12 magazine issues, I could have published 12 books. They would have been immediately viable and immediately saleable
Fair.
and revenue. So second lesson, I'd say get to revenue. Like you cannot make $1 million until you make $1.
Yep.
And the first sale is crucial. Like it's not everything, but without that first sale, it is nothing.
True. So that's kind of connected to distribution, actually getting it out.
Yes, your first sale means so much more than any potential future sales you could have. Like until you've sold something, actually received money, yeah, until you actually receive money and given a product or service, it's still an idea, right? So that's the second lesson. Third would be, I mean, this is going to sound really woe is me, but I think it's an important lesson. There are some times when it's just forces outside your control make it not an option at that time with your current resource set, right?
And just seeing that and accepting that.
Yeah, like, for example, I started a business in fonio. It's a West African grain. We were trying to bring it to American markets, and I was working with a very established, very reputable formulation fund. You would recognize some of their products probably from the grocery store, protein powders and such. We had this whole pipeline to get fonio into modern, like food streams, right? Food production streams, food processing streams. And then COVID hit and tripled the price of all my shipping, right? Tripled the price of my product. And then also, the farms that were producing fonio, all the samples we got, and we're getting back, started showing heavy metal contamination. That is, I can't sell heavy metal contaminated wheat, or grain. That's just not, it's literally toxic, but just not ethical, right? And so, I didn't have control over much of that, right? Now, I tried to work with the factory to say, the mill in Senegal to say, hey.
Is it here?
Yeah, I think so. We're seeing these problems. Can you work with me? Can we get, can we limit the suppliers so they're not having these problems, right? Can we do these different pieces? And they weren't willing to play ball. And at that time, they were the only mill in the world, right? Single supplier.
So it took, the mistake was it took too long for you to give up? Even though you should have noticed it, that this is now difficult.
Well, actually, our initial samples were clean. So it did change, right? It changed about the same time COVID went bad. So I don't know what happened there. So I don't know. I'm sure there were mistakes I made there too. But those I don't see so much as mistakes. It was just like, look, a global pandemic screwed up your supply chain. What are you supposed to do about that, right? Like you can try to pivot, but when you're working on a shoestring, you don't have the resources, right?
That's fair.
That's the other one is resources give you time to adapt. And that businesses don't run out of money, entrepreneurs do. So there's been a couple of businesses, that's not my quote, I heard that somewhere, but there's been a couple of businesses where they probably would have been viable if I could have taken a second or third or fourth stab at them. But when I'm bootstrapping and I have 10 grand total.
The money runs out.
And the money runs out and I've got to go back to work so my kids aren't on the street, right? Like literally.
So now you're doing it as a side hustle, rather, just so you can figure it out before you take the leap.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
And that has its own resource constraints because you only have so much time.
True.
Right? And I still have kids I need to spend, they need my time. So does my wife, right?
Right, so you have actually quite little time to work on this.
Precisely. So when we were talking with Ben Johnson about getting enough sleep, before I came here, I regularly got 4.5 hours of sleep a night. Like that was my standard. It's like,
that's wild.
Yeah, bad days were 3 hours, good days were 6, right?
Yes.
And what he said about being a 10x human, I've actually experienced. That's correct. So one of the things I wanted to come here was break that bad habit.
By sleeping well, you 10x your productivity and everything.
Exactly. So I'm trying to break that bad habit now, and it's helping. Last night was the first time I've been here since I got 8 hours of sleep, which is glorious.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you. But I would say that is the resources give you time more than anything else, or they speed up your time, right? So we talked about with Gold App. If we get sufficient investment, let's say there's an $8 customer acquisition cost, like we talked about with the viral loop, right? Well, if I have $10,000 to start with, which is a plausible, if I'm bootstrapping, I might come up with 10 grand, right? 10 grand's not a lot of money, but for somebody who's working for a living, that's not a small amount of money either, right?
Yep.
And so if I have 10,000 to start with, just play the numbers. How many people can I reach at an $8 customer acquisition cost? 1,200? A little bit less?
Yep.
1,150? And so if I have $150,000, just play the math.
I feel you.
Yeah, it goes that much faster.
What's something similar you learned from being a father, like lessons from having kids?
Yeah.
Something that you didn't expect, maybe, or
Yeah.
as a human.
No, that's a great question. And this actually ties into entrepreneurship too. Sometimes things are right, even if our expectations are wrong. I talk about this with religion sometimes. When I talk about like, the Bible can be true, even if my interpretation of the Bible is false, right? So I can think that the Bible says I have to hate X, Y, and Z. And other people say the Bible doesn't say that, right? The Bible can be true even if my interpretation is wrong.
Say again the first line. My expectations and say the first thing.
Yeah, so something can be right even if my expectations are wrong.
Right.
So again, the Bible's a good example. There are lots of different interpretations of the Bible.
True.
Some of them are hopefully true, right?
Probably,
I believe so.
Yeah,
Right?
must be. There's so many.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean mine is correct yet. It's not perfect yet. I don't have a perfect understanding of the scriptures yet, right? And so that's true of entrepreneurship and parenting especially. So I actually went through a kind of a mental health crisis where I was tying my spiritual worth to my success or lack thereof in entrepreneurship, which is dangerous. Don't do that. Anybody listening, don't do that. That's bad.
Yep, I understand that.
Yeah. And so what I realized was I had to come to the conclusion that God doesn't care if I'm rich or poor. He cares what I do with what I've been given, right? That's the insight I got from that, right? And to some degree that applies to parenting too. I may think that my kids should be X, Y, and Z. They are A, B, and C.
Yeah.
Right? And my expectations should be the thing that dies, not my relationship with my children, right? And so that's...
True. Reality is much more.
Yeah, it's much more important than our expectations. And to some degree you have to be humble enough to say, my expectations were wrong, right? I thought, by this point in my life, I thought I'd be independently wealthy. Kind of like...
reality is different now.
It's different, right.
Yeah.
And some of that's based on my choices. I chose to prioritize my family. Some of that's based on my mistakes. I screwed up sometimes. Some of that's just based on luck or the will of God or both, right? Some things are outside your control. And so when I look back on my life, do I regret it? No. But completely different than my expectations, right? And so I'd rather sacrifice my expectations than go jump off a cliff. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense actually. And we are all so married to our expectations.
Yes.
It should be like this and we force.
Yes, exactly.
You can't force reality in that way.
Exactly. And now there's some expectations also give you drive, so you can say, I'm going to go achieve this thing. So they're not bad altogether. But yeah, just be careful with those, because if you're more interested in the expectations, making things conform to your expectations, you're going to run into a world of hurt real fast.
Yeah, I actually, that resonated a lot with me.
Thank you.
Fuck yeah.
And on the plus side, life and the world are more wonderful than our expectations, essentially every time. Like my kids aren't how I expect them to be, they are far better. Right? My marriage is not what I expected it to be, it's far better.
It's much more complex than what you could imagine in your mind.
Rich and nuanced and satisfying in ways that my very two-dimensional expectations could never be, right?
I like that. The final part I would like to get into is God and faith.
Yeah.
What role has faith played for you? Is it something recent or has it always been part of your life?
So it's always been part of my life. I was raised with faith. That's one of the things I credit my parents also, is helping me grow up in a situation of faith. People talk about how they don't want to push their faith in their kids, but faithlessness is the null hypothesis. Like without active cultivation of faith, you will go to atheism, right? You go to faithlessness.
True, kind of.
So without, it is not indoctrination to share your faith with your children. In fact, it is necessary for them to have any chance of accepting it, right? They're not going to get it otherwise. The null hypothesis is atheism, right? At least in our current culture. And so it's always been a part of my life, but faith for me has been the really good check on my ambitions. There are evil things I could have done to make money, right? There have been opportunities I've had in business and entrepreneurship, sometimes even in politics. I was a state delegate in Utah once, right?
Okay.
And even that very short career in politics, I saw scuzzy stuff, right?
I like that.
Yeah. And so faith has been a check on bad behavior in a lot of ways. Like, no, wait, there is something more important than my startup.
I feel you.
So that's my family, that's my relationship with God. And then very directly, I mean, I believe in a revelatory Christianity, right? That I pray and get answers. And so some of those answers have been, Brett, I don't care how much money you have. I want you to be a good person, right?
Nice.
That was a life-changing experience, right? That answer to prayer.
Was it what you needed?
Absolutely, when you change who I am as a person, change who I was trying to be as a person, right? Stop me from beating up myself for not having succeeded when, again, some of that was outside my control, right?
It is a lot of
Yeah,
happiness.
I mean, Now, I'm sure you'll get a lot of hate online for people saying, he's a whiner.
No,
if
no, no.
If it's a meritocracy, he would have made it happen, yada, yada, yada. To some degree, yes. But there's credible research that shows that
It's
luck,
also luck, 100%.
yeah,
it's
is
luck.
a huge chunk of how successful entrepreneurs
Yes,
are.
yes. I think many people often say it's luck. It's both, of course, but
Yeah.
it's also luck.
Yeah.
But hey, where can people find you online if they want to
Yeah.
find you?
If people want to see kind of what I'm working on in the moment, Twitter at BTMPB. It's my first 4 initials and then just B again at the end, so BTMPB on Twitter. Otherwise, you can go and see the terrible version of our website at midasgold.app. Please wait a little while and it will be better. Those are 2 of the best sources for the moment.
Okay, very cool. Thanks a lot, man. This was fun for me.
Me too, Millie. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, it was hot.